Welcome to the latest edition of Lunchtime Learnings. Today I am with Hugh Riley. Hugh is Head of Field Surveying at the GoTo Group, and we're going to talk about understanding surveys. So once again, I'm a firm believer that agents need to educate buyers and sellers as to certain things. Last week I discussed searches, and this week I'm going to discuss with Hugh survey. So Hugh, thank you so much for joining me today. It's a pleasure having you on. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me on.
No, my pleasure. So surveys. Talk to me about the different types of surveys a buyer can have, please.
Well, what we concentrate on obviously is RICS surveys. There are three principal types that a buyer may choose to have. The most common one, which most buyers will come across, is having a mortgage valuation survey. And that is conducted by the lender for the lender to identify that it's suitable security for their loan. It's not a survey for the buyer, but unfortunately many buyers mistakenly think it is more of a defect survey, when actually it is purely for the lender and for the lender's risk appetite as to whether they want to lend on it. The area where buyers should really focus if they are having a lender mortgage valuation is an independent survey, which will identify defects for them. Nowadays, many mortgage valuations are actually done via desktops, so the lender actually never gets to see the property. And I would strongly advise anybody buying a property to have an independent defect survey, and most buyers will commission a level 2 or level 3 RICS survey.
Okay, so thank you. So level 2, what's that?
Level 2 is the most common survey, which is suitable for most property types. Really anything which is newer than about 1850 could be considered suitable for a level 2. And a qualified surveyor will visit the property and conduct an inspection of it. That will include looking at all aspects of the property to consider whether there is any area that the buyer needs to be advised on. It's not really suitable for property which has been significantly altered or extended, but for most purchasers, it'll give them a very good overview of the areas that they need to be interested in. I think if we go straight on to level 3s are a much more thorough survey, which is suitable for older or individual property, or property which has been significantly altered. In particular, anything which is sort of pre-1850, a listed building, or something of special architectural interest, then that's the type of property which you should consider a level 3 for. Sorry.
I was going to say, and I'm going to come back to you on both of those. In terms of investment in having it done, is there a big price differential between a level 2 and level 3?
It depends an awful lot on the value of the property you're buying. You'll find that most surveying firms will work on fees which are graded across price ranges. Typically, the difference between a level 2 and a level 3 could be £200 or £300 for any particular type of property. The level 2 is a less thorough survey and will go into description of the property, description of each element, identifying defects and providing advice. But for a more in-depth level 3, the surveyor will tend to be there longer, will be more thorough the type of service that they will look at and offer will be much more in depth, and the report itself will be much more in depth to ensure that advice given actually identifies what's causing a defect, and to provide advice on consequences if that defect is not repaired, and the timescale possibly for the necessary work to be carried out.
Okay, so I've got a few questions thinking as a potential buyer of a property. So I haven't bought for a while. Last time there was stuff called home buyers reports and full structural surveys. Are they no longer valid, and have they been replaced by level 2s and level 3s?
Yeah, around 2020, just before COVID, the RICS had a complete rethink about how surveys should be presented to the public, and wanted to make them much more user-friendly. So they had a workshop, want a better word, of a thing called a review of the Home Survey Standard, and the old home buyers and building surveys were completely remodelled to make them much more user-friendly. And the guidelines that surveyors work to now are to provide reports within that framework, but to have the latitude to just give products to the public with a level of detail and level of service to what the public are looking for. So that has led to things like the introduction of camera polls, drone surveys, and actually expanding upon the range of services that surveyors may offer as specialist additions to the report the public could buy.
Okay, thank you. Again, with my buyer hat on, how long would a particular level 2 or level 3 survey take? And can I come along with you and watch you do it?
I'll take that in two parts. A level 2 survey typically will be between about an hour and a half and 2 hours on site, but one has to remember that the report writing after the event can take at least as long, and is delving into the knowledge of the surveyor afterwards. A level 3 will probably be 3 or 4 hours on site, with an equivalent amount of time writing the report afterwards. And unfortunately, one can't come along with the surveyor on site purely for insurance reasons. But what we are able to offer customers is either a pre-survey call or a post-survey call, so that they can raise any areas that the surveyor needs to look at closely, or post-survey to find out the results of the surveyor's inspection, and just talk through what has appeared in the report. Okay,
so I'm now got my agent's hat on. I'm curious to know how many agents have actually asked you if they could see an example of a level 2 report and a level 3 report, so they've got a better understanding when a potential buyer comes to them and says, like, I've got my level 2 survey back, my level 3 survey back, there's this issue, there's that issue. So they've got a better understanding as to what to say. Obviously, they're not surveyors, I understand that. But have you had any agents want to come for training and say, can you provide a level 2 report? Can you talk us through it? What is a traffic light scheme in there? And we come to that in a bit. So they've got a better understanding, so they can help their buyers and their sellers.
Well, but before I was a surveyor, I was an estate agent. So I'm very sympathetic to a estate agent's opinion of surveys. And I'm always very happy to talk to any estate agent to educate them about what a surveyor does, and provide assistance about what a survey may report. Obviously, the survey is confidential to the buyer, so it's often difficult to divulge the contents of the report to a third party. But if we talk generally, I am occasionally asked by estate agents to provide training on this, and often I have supplied redacted reports so that they can see an example of an up-to-date level 2 or an up-to-date level 3. And that training piece often culminates with the question of, needless to say, a survey by its very nature tends to be a negative report. And it culminates with estate agents asking me how can they improve their property which is being surveyed pre-survey. And a very good example of that would be surveyors on services often come across boilers which appear not to have been inspected within the last year. And a really quick win for estate agents is to get their vendors to get an appropriately qualified person to conduct a heating engineer report of the gas boiler, get up-to-date certification on it, and have that with the boiler for when the surveyor visits. Without it, it's an automatic condition rating 3 for the surveyor. With it, the surveyor may be able to go down the route of giving the boiler a green light condition rating 1. And there's some really quick wins that agents can adopt to present their property in the best light for a surveyor.
Okay, well, I love that tip on boilers and having the gas safety certificate by them. You talked about other wins that agents could adopt. Can you give us share a couple more examples of that?
Well, services is a very easy one. Another example, just to help the surveyor, is actually on site to ensure that the loft ladder is down, that all the keys are easy to find, that the surveyor can actually access everything he wants to access. And if you've got the time to meet the surveyor on site as well, rather than the surveyor having to make a detour to collect keys, is again a quick win to put the surveyor in the right frame of mind for arrival at the property.
Okay, I love all of those tips, so thank you. And I just want to come back on something else for the agent as well, please, that's just come into my mind. Going back to the mortgage valuation surveys, and I appreciate some are done by the desktop. Again, what will be helpful for the surveyor for the agents to provide before they're doing their work?
Well, for surveyors and mortgage valuations, it's a slightly different level. Well, it is a different level of inspection where the surveyor is looking at it on behalf of the mortgage lender to ensure it's suitable security. Once the property has passed the test of being readily saleable and mortgageable, then it's a case of looking at the comparable sales to justify the sale price. And obviously, one of the difficulties that agents come across with surveyors is down valuation. And to help surveyors realise the achieved sale price within their mortgage valuation form, when a surveyor picks up keys, it's really helpful if the agent can provide examples of recent sold property that they may be aware of, that the surveyor might not come across on Rightmove Plus. The vast majority of properties are valued nowadays with surveyors looking at the proven sale record of properties on Rightmove Plus. So if an agent is aware of an off-market sale that may not have appeared on the databases and can provide that to the surveyor, then that will help the surveyor with his valuation process.
Fantastic. And presumably, to make your life easier, emailed over before you do the desktop or go to the property?
Yeah, if they can be provided when the keys are picked up, or emailed over, then it's all helpful.
Okay, fantastic. That's really good stuff. So coming back now, you mentioned condition rating 3, condition rating 1. So as somebody who does not have a clue what the hell you're talking about as a buyer, what does that mean? Is there condition 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or does it stop at 3?
Both the level 2 and the level 3 are graded on the basis of condition ratings 1, 2, and 3. And there's a traffic light system to make it easy for the buyer to review. Within the level 2 and level 3, there is a summary right at the beginning of the report with all the condition ratings collated together, so that you can see in a snapshot that the level 3s are all together, and the worst level 3 is the worst condition, and is a traffic light red. Level 2 is obviously in the middle, which is an amber traffic light, and level 1 is a green traffic light, which is that no repair is needed. For the red level 3s, those are the ones which are serious defects which need immediate repair. The amber 2s are defects which need repair, but not immediately. And when I'm reading reports nowadays, for most modern property, it's quite common to see the vast majority of services being rated as level 3, and that's simply because there isn't an up-to-date certification of a recent inspection. Obviously, there are many other issues which could be rated as level 3, and if owners keep their homes in good repair and maintain them regularly, then that will minimise the risk of a surveyor spotting a level 3 issue.
Okay, and what about damp and dry rot? Is that something that would come up in level 2, or is that more level 3?
Well, part of a surveyor's job on site for a level 2 or a level 3 is to conduct damp tests throughout the property and note the locations of where those damp meter readings are taken. If there is localized dampness, the surveyor may professionally judge to rate it 2 or 3. And if there is serious dampness throughout the property, it's undoubtedly going to be recommended as a red light 3, with a recommendation for further investigation with a damp and timber survey. And it's not unusual for anything which is condition rating 3 to have a recommendation for further specialist investigation.
Okay, so when you make the recommendation, would you be recommending local specialists, or would you expect the estate agent to give that buyer people the damp and wood rot specialists?
Yeah. The surveyor's role is not to recommend a contractor; is just to recommend that the service is required, and the buyer is free to choose a contractor which they would like to work with in the future. If damp and timber work is required, which will possibly involve replastering up to 1 meter high and internally on ground floor areas, then obviously that's going to involve a fair amount of upheaval and expense, and it is very much for the buyer to choose a contractor they're happy working with.
Okay, and would you ever then put a retention that X amount needs to be set aside in order to do that work?
On level 2s and level 3s, that's not applicable because level 2s and level 3s are purely defect surveys and don't involve retentions for lenders. For mortgage valuations, then retentions are potentially applicable, but they're subject to that lender's individual lending policy. And some lenders, well, many lenders are steering away from retentions, and some lenders actually have a policy that if a retention is required, they won't consider lending on the house. But it is lender by lender individual policy as to whether, for example, damp timber would get a retention or otherwise, or it may be the case that the lender will choose to proceed with the loan regardless, because the loan to value is sufficient to cover any lending that they're going to undertake.
Okay, so you mentioned about the boiler, and you gave good value there with a gas certificate. What about electrics? Is that something there should be certificates by the electrics to help as well?
Yeah, but again, that's a classic service quick win, which if a surveyor views a property where the electrics are considered to be possibly at fault or faulty, then a condition rating 3 rating will be applied for further investigation by an appropriate qualified electrician at a later date. If the vendor can have an electrical safety certificate prepared in advance and have that available to hand for the surveyor to view, that will minimise the risk of further investigations being requested. And most properties, I think the current recommendation is that property is inspected every 10 years. So a lot of newer property will have a recent electrical certificate, which is probably buried in your filing cabinet somewhere. And it's very easy just to dig it out and include it, put it to one side, put it next to the electrical meter or the fuse box for the surveyor's inspection. Or be preemptive about it and have an inspection as part of your pre-sale process.
Okay, you've just got my mind whizzing around. Would you have a checklist that a surveyor gives to maybe an agent to begin with, to say, look, I know you're going to be selling this property. Hopefully you'll get an offer very soon. What I would like to do, because I just think the process, it just takes too long. The whole transactional process in this country, from when it comes onto the market, from when it gets sold, it's just ridiculous how long it is. And if there's a solution of just to shave a few days off, would one of those solutions be coming up with a checklist? The agent gives it to the seller when they're on the market appraisal valuation. This is a way for me of thinking of standing out and being different and demonstrating why you're worth your 2%. Saying, look, I work with a local surveyor. You know, when it comes to the property being sold, a buyer is going to have a survey. What I've done with this surveyor is I've got a checklist of everything you need to have ready for when the surveyor comes round. And then that's going to save time, because hopefully you're not going to say further investigation, because they've got them all there. And hopefully that may save a few days, a week or two. Is there a checklist there? That was a long-winded way of asking that question.
Well, I think great minds think alike, because I think the trading standards have done something very similar for pre-sale information to be researched by estate agents. For example, finding out whether property is listed and being able to report that as part of their vendor questionnaire pack. But certainly, I'd recommend that agents talk to local surveyors and find out what the quick wins are for their particular area. But across the board, most surveyors will be very happy to provide informal advice on, as you say, shaving off a few days and concerns that a prospective buyer may have.
Maybe I'm being a little bit presumptuous or asking, is there something you and I could do together to put something together to help agents?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I as I say, I am a former agent. I was an estate agent before I was a surveyor, so I'm very sympathetic to helping people actually, and also provide a better service for buyers, so that the transaction is smoother for everybody.
Brilliant. Okay, so thank you for that. Roofs. What sort of things are you looking at? Are you looking at roofs and guttering? You know, I've had surveys that said, oh, the roof's going to need replacing, and 30 years time it still hasn't been replaced. So how much detail would you go into roofing?
Well, again, the condition rating traffic light system applies. on a case-by-case basis, and you've got to consider every property on its merits or otherwise. Obviously, the occasional loose tile or missing tile will probably be rated as a CR2, an amber issue, which doesn't need to be fixed right now. But we do need to make buyers aware of this and be professionally responsible for identifying defects. I think, particularly with roofs, obviously there's two elements to a roof. There's the outside bit, but also the inside bit and the structure. And within the level 2 and level 3 reports, it appears twice in section D and section E as the outside section and the interior section. One of the issues which I come across a lot and have come across a lot recently on the inside section of roofs is spray foam. And that is something which agents should be aware of as being a potential issue if it has been installed or indeed installed and removed.
Okay.
And that will lead to a CR3.
Okay. Again, is that a question that the agent should be asking? When they're on the
absolutely. That's exactly why I mention it. Is if you are appraising a property for sale, agents concentrate on the factors that they can see which will appeal to buyers, and when they're considering how much to put a property on the market for, and however desirable and well located the property is, what they won't do is they won't look on the roof. If a property does have spray foam within the roof, then that's something an agent should be aware of right at the beginning to try and mitigate the consequences of it.
Okay, 100%. You touched on the report having different sections. Again, what are those sections and what will be the content in them?
Well, the level 2 and the level 3 effectively mirror each other in many respects, and the initial opening pages relate to set the scene of a description of the property, and also right at the beginning provide the overall opinion of the surveyor's views at a very early stage. And many buyers read that without reading the detail which follows in the other 50, 60, 70 pages. The other 50, 60, 70 pages, once you've got past the general description, move on to each section has a limitation section of what can't be seen. And in section D, that relates to the outside elements of the property, things like the chimney, the roof, the walls, the windows. And the next section, section E, is the interior elements of the property, things like within the roof space, ceilings, walls and partitions, kitchens, bathrooms. The final two sections are section F, which is the services section, which will report on gas heating, water heating, drainage, and the electrical section. And then the final description section is section G, which relates to the garage, the gardens, the outside of the property, before moving on to the final aspects of the report, which tend to be fairly standard, relating to RITS limitations, or if it's a flat, the leasehold appendix.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So, if I'm a buyer, are there any other questions I should be asking you, or should I know that I haven't asked?
Well, I think as a buyer, it's really important to make that decision to have a defect survey. And so many mortgage valuations are now being done via a desktop route. And we often come across desktop valuations where a significant defect hasn't been seen, which may assist the purchaser budget for repairs. I think on average, most defect surveys that we do save buyers £5,000 in terms of repair costs that they hadn't otherwise anticipated for. And having made that decision to have a defect survey at an early stage in your house buying process, identify some surveyors locally or nationally, like us as a national company, who might be able to assist you with your survey, get a feel for whether you want a level 2 or a level 3, get a feel for how much you're prepared to pay, so that when you do find the house of your dreams, you can act quickly to appoint a surveyor and get them to look at any issues at an early stage of the buying process before you go too far. Particularly at this time of year, surveyors are very busy. Some surveyors we're involved with are currently booking 2, 3, 4 weeks away. So if you've developed a relationship with a surveyor at an early stage, that will hopefully fast track your inspection and enable the surveyor to assist you in a timely fashion.
Okay, so I receive your report as a buyer, and you come up with, loads of bits and pieces that need doing. Can I then come back to you and say, can you give me a rough idea as to how much it would cost to get new heating in, how much it would cost to put, more up-to-date electrics in, how much it would cost if there's asbestos there and stuff like that?
Within a level 2, that's outside the scope of inspection. Within a level 3, that is an optional service which you can ask for, where the surveyor can provide some guideline figures of the defects they've identified and what the possible cost will be. Having said that, if a surveyor identifies a defect which requires remedial repair, it's often best to go straight to a local contractor or a couple of local contractors and get a range of quotes. We all know that tradespeople are very busy, and it's a good idea to get a range of quotations and to find out their availability if something does need to be repaired.
Brilliant. Okay, well, look, that's absolutely flown by. Thank you so much for your time. If people want to get hold of you, Hugh, and find out a bit more about your services, and they've got any questions, how do they do that, please?
Well, we're a national surveying company called GoTo Group, GoTo Surveyors. And if you want to drop us a line, please look up our website, put an inquiry in, and we'd be delighted to hear from you. And we'll be able to help either with a staff surveyor or a panel surveyor.
Amazing. Well, look, thank you so much for your time. Everybody, thank you so much for watching and listening. If you've got any questions, please get in contact and I will put you through to Hugh. And hopefully, you and I will talk about getting some form of checklist out. So if anybody watching and listening wants a checklist, get in touch and that will hold us both accountable. So thanks very much for watching and listening and have a good rest of the day. Thanks. Bye.
All right. Thanks, Stephen.